happening?
To his children, Andergachu Sege is the father they haven't seen for more than 2 years. To the Ethiopian government, he's a terrorist fighting to destabilise the state.
I do not accept that. He is not a terrorist. The Ethiopian government label anybody and everybody that dissents a terrorist. I have been termed a terrorist.
Andy Sege fled Ethiopia 4 decades ago and became a British citizen, but he remained a vocal critic of the government in Addis Ababa. In 2009, he was tried in his absence, convicted of treason and sentenced to death. 5 years later, he was seized by agents while travelling through Yemen and taken back to Ethiopia, where he was shown on state television. He's still in prison. So far, the death sentence has not been implemented. The Ethiopian government say he was on his way to Eritrea to train rebels.
Yes, of course. He's a terrorist, and many people know that.
But only the Ethiopian government define him as a terrorist. The British government don't. The United Nations don't.
You see, we red-handed him while just traveling to Eritrea. Why Andergachu was traveling to Eritrea? He was just going, not for holidays. He was going to there to just train another fighters to create more chaos and attack on Ethiopia.
His family have been campaigning to free him ever since. A legal challenge brought in the name of his 9-year-old daughter tried to force the Foreign Secretary to do more to secure his release.
I've written to David Cameron, but that doesn't matter anymore because he's out of here. I've written to the Queen, and we've done petitions. We even went to Downing Street, knocked on the door of number 10.
The High Court challenge failed and has not been appealed. But Boris Johnson used it as a reason for not talking about the case in the Commons last week.
I cannot, I'm afraid, comment further because our handling of this case is the subject of ongoing legal proceedings.
Which is a little odd because while legal proceedings were active, David Cameron did speak about Mr Sege in one of his final PMQs.
Our consul has been able to meet with Mr Sege on a number of occasions, and we're working with him and with the Ethiopian government to try and get this resolved.
I mean, I think it's appalling. I think it's yet another obfuscation by the Foreign Secretary. And instead of really looking at this case for what it is, an egregious series of unlawful acts perpetrated against a British national, Boris Johnson is saying he can't answer questions on the case. Why? Because he doesn't have the answers, because they're not doing the right thing for this British father of 3.
2 weeks ago, a state of emergency was declared in Ethiopia as its leaders tried to deal with violent protests. But despite convicting Andy Sege of terrorism 7 years ago, the government never asked for him to be extradited from Britain. The Foreign Office insists they have provided significant support for Mr Sege and his family, but despite the dubious circumstances in which he was convicted and forcibly taken back to Ethiopia, the British government will not ask for his release. That, they say, would be to interfere in another country's judicial process. But Conservative MP Andrew Mitchell, using contacts he made while International Development Secretary, has asked the Ethiopians to release Andy Sege.
The way he was rendered from Sano is completely unacceptable, and it's out with international law. So that is an issue. But what we need here is for the Foreign Office to address this with the government of Ethiopia.
I think the meeting should go there and then just do worksheet here.
But until then, the wait goes on for his family in London. The verdict from the Sege family: Boris Johnson must try harder.
I'm finished.
Ian Woods, Sky News.